Hello beauties, and welcome back to the Bumpy Bones Locksport channel. So I got a new lockpick kit in the mail over this past weekend, and so I thought in this video we would do a review of it. So we're going to be taking a look at the Elite 39 Lock Noob Essential Selection Lockpick Kit from Multipick. Now try saying that 3 times fast. Now, I won this through a giveaway from DMAC. It was the prize for his February 2026 giveaway, and I was actually really excited that I won that because Multipick is definitely in the top 3 of my most favorite pick manufacturers, if not number 1 on that. They're the picks that I grabbed the most of. I love the steel. They use a German spring steel. The construction on these have always been good with me. Their customer service is really great. Probably after that, I would rank Law Lock Tools because the handle design on Law Lock Tools is really good and they got some really good profiles. And then I would put Covert Instruments in after that. And the only reason I put Covert Instruments as third on that list is their picks are almost as good as Multipick. They use a high yield stainless steel, but they don't have the number of profiles that Multipick has. And so that's one reason why I would rank them a bit lower. But this kit has been on my wish list for a while, and with me being in the US, ordering from a German-based company right now is kind of tough. It's expensive for me to do that. This set, at least on their website, goes for $258. And I don't know if there's any tariffs that are associated with that right now or, with the shipping fee. So I would probably be looking at probably in the upper 200s, if not 300, if I wanted to order this directly from Multipick. So I was super excited that I won this set. So let's go ahead and talk about this kit in a little bit more detail. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the case because I really like the case. Now, I have ordered other multi-pick kits in the past that actually have the same case. In fact, one thing that I noticed, so this is the case that came with the Sandman Advanced set. It's the same case, but just it looks different. This is a lot shinier, a lot smoother. It's been oiled, and I couldn't tell if that was something that DMAC did or if this is the way that it's coming from Multipick now. When I'm looking at the image on the website, it almost looks like this is the standard case now. Which if it is, that is awesome because I really love the feel of the leather. It's a really nice high-end case and all that. I'm not sure if I am going to stick with this case or not because the problem that I had with this case when it came to the same, as you can see, I don't use it. And the primary reason I don't use it is I do a bolstering wrap on my picks. I really like the bolstering wrap. It adds a lot of texture, adds good grip to it, but it does thicken the picks. And so with the way that Multipick designed their case, I can't have a pick in the background and then I can't take a pick and put it in the forefront here. It just won't allow me. Now, I could probably force it and stretch the leather and get it to go eventually, but that would be a lot of work. And so, their case does not really like it when you put a additional material on the handles of their picks and all that. So I'm not sure, excuse me, if I am going to stay with, not doing a bolstering wrap on these picks or if I'm just going to keep the handles plain in that. The reason I do the bolstering wrap is because with my fingers it adds a bit of grip, it thickens it a little bit and makes it easier for me to work with them. If I don't keep the case, I'll probably go back to, my favorite case. My favorite all-time case is the Sparrows Sherman case here. This is the case I've always used. You can see I already have some tensioners in here and all that. Actually, I have 2 of these because, I really love them and all that. So I'm not sure if I'm going to change over to this case in the future. Or not, but I'm going to give this a try and just see where it goes, and maybe I'll do a video in the future or post in the future kind of with an update on what I do with the case on this. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at the picks here. Now, there are about 22 picks or 21 picks in here. I think there's 20 or 19 standard or regular picks and then the 2 Dimple picks. And I really love the selection of picks that they include with this. You know, the hooks, you have the elite hooks 1 through 3, or 1 through 5. You have a ball pick, you've got a diamond pick, you've got a couple of really nice rakes here. You got the Christina Palmer rakes, you've got a couple of the lock noob picks and rakes. So, you know, we've got the Monith rake, which I don't have this one, so I was really excited to get this one. You know, it's almost like a snake rake, but it's a little bit more aggressive and all that. So if I actually grab a snake pick here, you know, we can kind of do a comparison. So you can see, you know, it's a much sharper peak than on a regular snake pick and all that. Um, and then we have I think this is well, that's the Bogota. And then we have the Bone, Abona, Abona, rake and all that. And I just loved how that alternates between a low peak and a high peak. I've used these quite a few times, and it's been a really good rake. Now my raking skills still are not, you know, that great, so you know I'm really happy to see a nice variety of rakes in the set here. Um, and then we also have a probe pick or straight pick here. And I was actually really glad to see this in here because I use these quite a bit, especially like when I am wanting to, you know, see how deep a lockway goes, or if I'm starting to get into tubular picks. And so, you know, I've got the tubular pick from Covert Instruments. I used a lot with that. But this is a little bit deeper. It's a little bit more narrow, which I like. You know, that was one thing with the Covert Instruments tubular pick that I was finding is that it's a little bit wide. So when I get close to the tensioner, or trying to get behind the tensioner, if there's a pin underneath the tensioner, it's a little funky working with that one. So, you know, and this I'm going to be anxious to see how this performs when I'm doing tubular picks and all of that. And then we've got a short hook that's the .04. Now, what I really like about this set is that it comes in 2 gauges, or 2 thicknesses. So with the hooks, so we've got in the front here the .6 millimeter picks, and then we got the .4 millimeter picks in the back end. And I was actually really happy that this had the .4 millimeter picks in it because my .4 millimeter pick collection is kind of skimpy. If I grab them out of my holder here, and let's just separate those there, because those are my lock picks, or those are my handcuff picks and all of that, or shims. You can see this is pretty much all the picks I've got with the .4 millimeter. I got a couple of wall lock tools that are .4 millimeters, but primarily these are them, and these are all multi-pick. And so I've got a couple of the profiles here already, but I don't have a lot of those profiles in the .4 millimeter. So I was actually really happy to see that that was included with this set here. Because I've been using the .4 millimeters a lot more, especially when I get into the paracentric keyways. So especially that hook number 1, I really like the hook number 1 profile when it comes to multi-pick. And then we have a bunch of tensioners here. Now we've got the champion, a couple of the champion tensioners here. So these are, you know, the short tip tensioners. So these can be top of the keyway or bottom of the keyway, depending on how you're approaching it. And this is where I'm going to have to kind of do a little disclaimer. You know, I live in the U.S. And so when we look at locks, or when we have locks installed on our doors, typically we have it with the pins face up. You know, in Europe, you're looking at a lot of the Euro cylinders, and the way that they typically will install the Euro cylinders with the pins down. And so in this orientation here, a tensioner like this is really nice because you can put that in, you know, what I would call the top of the keyway and tension off of that like this. You know, with me being in the US, we typically look like that and look at it like this, and tensioning off of it like that doesn't really work as well. There are some locks that works great with. You know, you can go like that and tension off the top, which is nice. So these are nice tensioners. I do like them. I've actually been getting more into the finer heads on my bottom of the keyway tensioners. Um, so we have those. And we're going to do some measurements here in a moment, just to take a look and see. And then we've got these other tensioners here. Now these, one thing that I would say is that I'm going to work on the tensioners a bit on this kit because I love the picks, but the tensioners are okay. And here's why. When I'm looking at these tensioners, there's not a lot of variety in the tensioners, especially with bomb and the keyway. And what we're going to do is let's go ahead and measure these, because when I'm taking a look at the thickness on these, they're all pretty much the same with the exception of this guy. This guy is a really, really thin one. And I'm actually really happy to get this guy because I've got some locks that I have been having a hard time finding tensioners for. So for example, this icon here that I've got, this is a little small for that one. But I've got a DOM here that is a really crazy keyway. And this is a 333R plus. And I want to do top of the keyway on this because the bottom of the keyway, is really difficult, and I can't tension in the middle here with it because I need to get my pick in there. But this guy here fits in there perfectly, with little wiggle space and all that. So I can actually utilize this tensioner for this guy and actually start working on this guy, which will be really nice. And so, but let's take a look at our widths here because that is a question that I've got. They feel like 1 millimeters, but let me grab a 1 millimeter here real quick and see. Well, actually, no, that seems a little thinner than a 1 millimeter. So let's see what we got going on here. Let's go ahead and measure this. All right, so that's a 0.8 millimeter. Let's see here. The really thin one, I'm curious what that is. That's a 0.5 millimeter, which is kind of cool. You don't see a lot of those. This is 0.8. I have a feeling all of these are going to be 0.8 now. 0.85. And then 0.7. 0.65. So this guy's even thinner. So, that is one thing here that I would say that I'm going to change. I'm going to replace pretty much all of these. I may keep one. I might keep the longer one here. Actually, I might keep the shorter one here. But I'm going to swap these out for other tensioners. And I've got some others here. And so, I've got, the multi-pick, Z bars here. I'm not sure what happened to my 0.8 millimeter. I might have to order one of those at some point, but I don't use 0.8 a lot, and seeing that this is 0.8, I don't really need to, rush that. And then I've got some custom tensioners here that I made, and I've been using these tensioners a lot. In fact, I might work on these a little bit because what I've been doing on my tensioners is I've been tapering the head of it, and that's been making it very, very useful and all that. I saw that on bare bones and all of that, and so I'm going to go through and probably do that with these guys here. I've had these in my lockpick holder for a long time. I don't really use the Z bars too much, so I think I'm going to throw them in here, and that way when I'm traveling, I got a set of my custom tensioners I can use and kind of work with them and all of that. So all right, and then we've got Dimple picks and Dimple tensioners and all. Actually, before we get to that, we do have a couple of pry bars here, and these are the standard, 0.8, 1 millimeter, and 1.2 millimeter. So we'll be using these guys when we look at like American Lock or when I want to do top of the keyway tensioning with these. And then we have some Dimple picks and tensioners here. So we've got the Z-bar tensioners for dimples, and so we got the 1.5, we got a 1.2, and another 1.2. A little bit of a different head on the tensioners here. And these are nice tensioners. I already have a set of these, and I use them a lot when I'm working on my dimple locks and all of that. So, But the tensioners with this that I am really excited to see, are these two here. So, this has been a style of a tensioner that I've been wanting to get. I've got one from Sparrows, but it's kind of big. So getting one that's a bit smaller is actually really kind of nice. It gives me a couple of options here. And that's actually a decent size when it comes to the Dimple here. Now, the idea with these is you would go into the middle. And one reason why I was really kind of looking forward to getting one of these is I've been really wanting to get into my I'm not going to be able to pronounce it, Minwa, M-I-W-A, Miwa, lock here. And this is the blue belt version. I also have the black belt version, but these are a lever lock. So we have little levers in here that we have to work with. And so I have to go through the middle here. So tensioning this guy has always been a bit of a challenge for me. So this here is actually kind of nice. I can tension off the top here and, hold on it like that and work in there with it. But I also have this other tensioner here now, where if I remove this little metal ring here, it pops out like that, and this fits in there perfectly. So this is another really nice tensioner when it comes to these locks here. I went and I got the ring tensioner from Multipick, and I got this about maybe 3 months ago, I would say. I don't use it too much. It's an okay tensioner, but you can see there's still a lot of give when it comes to that. You can get a lot of different rotations, so if I have to counter rotate, that can be a bit of a problem. This fits in there almost perfectly, and I can counter rotate without, giving any tension or anything like that. So I'm actually really excited to start playing with these and all that. And then we've got our dimple locks, our dimple picks and all that. And these are just two standard flags. You got a left flag and a right flag here. And, I don't see a lot of dimple locks in my area. I've seen a couple. I mean, I can get them on Amazon pretty easily and all that, but I just don't see them in a lot of use cases here. And I don't take my dimple locks with me when I'm traveling because I typically use vices with them, and so I might remove the dimple locks from my set here, or the dimple picks from my set here, and just keep them off to the side so that way I can just focus on the picks with the set. But I do like the dimple picks from Multipick. The necks are or the handles are kind of narrow. In fact, one thing that I just did, and it actually worked pretty well, was I was able to do a heat shrink around one and all that, and it just thickened it a little bit. And I do notice a bit of a difference with it, so I might do that with these. I'm not sure. I already have the flags on this because I got the full set of multi-pick dimples, so it's kind of nice having a couple of extras and all that. But again, I don't do a lot of dimple picks or dimple locks and all that yet. I do want to start working on them a bit more, but I'm probably not going to do that in today's video and all of that. So here's the set. So let's go ahead and put some things away here. And let's go ahead and pick a couple of locks open here. Again, I've used multi-pick a lot, and so I'm very used to their picks and all that. Although, again, I put a bowstring wrap on my handles, so whenever you get new picks, or you get a slightly different pick, it always is a little bit of a challenge starting with them because you gotta get used to, the changes in them. So not having the bowstring wrap on these will be kind of interesting and all that. So let's go ahead and let me grab some locks here. Let me put some locks up here. I'm not going to work on that one today because I haven't even started looking at how to even approach that. And these are dimple locks, so I'm probably not going to work with those here. Let's grab that. Let's move our tensioners over here. I might put these tensioners here because I might grab those. I'm not quite sure yet. I might try my best to work with the ones that came with the set and all of that. So I'm going to put the picks there. Let me grab my stand, have that at the ready because we're going to do a couple of American locks and some other locks. So let's go ahead and just start with a very basic master lock here. And this is again why I am going to be replacing the tensioners on here, because a 0.8 millimeter bottom decay weight tensioner for me, you know, I like 1 millimeter, and I really wish they included a 1 millimeter. I mean, granted, the champions here is a 0.8, a 1, and a 1.2, but you know, while I have been trying to use like the shorter tipped bottom decay weight tensioners, having a longer one is very useful in a few cases, and a lot of cases and all that. There are some cases where you do want to have a nice short one in it, and so these are going to come in very handy, but I do like the longer neck or the longer head ones and all of that. So let's go ahead and grab a 1 millimeter here again, or a 0.8 millimeter one here. And let's go ahead and do a hook one. This is the 0.6 millimeter. And let's go ahead and pick this guy open. So there's 4, 3, and 2. And there we go. All right. So, I mean, you know, they're great picks. I love them. That's an easy lock and all that. Let's go on to a American lock here. So for this, what we want to do is there's the one I was looking for. Put that one over there. I want to grab my stand. And let's go ahead and grab an American lock here. Throw it in here. Get that nice and angled. And so I'm going to use the pry bars here. And for the American lock, I think a 1.2 will work. Yep. And let's go with a deeper hook on this. Let's go with a hook number 4. I don't think I've got a hook number 4 in my collection. So this will be kind of a new profile. It's kind of a flat head, wide hook and all that. Very deep. I would say it's like if you were working with wall lock tools, it would be like a hook number 3. All right, so got some nice clicks there. All right, so a nice false set. And we are open. So a really nice pick again. I love multi-pick. Let's go ahead and do a Abus 7240 here. And again, this is where it's going to get kind of interesting with the tensioners that they include. Let's go with this guy here. Normally, yeah, see, that's going to be too thin. That's a little too thick. Nope. That's a little too thin. That's going to be way too thin. So let's go ahead and check out our champion ones here. All right, I might be able to do it with this one. And then I'm going to go back to the hook number 1. So there's pin 1, pin 2, 3, 4. Got a nice false set. 5. All right, let's go back. I'm in a false set, so I'm looking for the one that. All right, 4. All right, false set again. 5 dropped, okay. And there we go. We are open. You know, one thing that I wish that multi-pick, I don't know if they've got a pick like it, but I really wish that they had a shallow pick. So for example, I've got one here that I made. So this is a really shallow one. This was kind of inspired from the Covert Instruments shallow pick and all that. I'm not sure if they've got one that's like this, but there are a lot of cases, especially when I'm working with like a Yale style keyway or a really paracentric keyway, where it's I can't get the pick under and all of that. It gets a little bit funky doing that, so I kind of wish that they had a bit of a shallower hook with it, but they're really nice and all that. All right, so let's go ahead and do a narrower keyway because I want to play with the 0.4 millimeters a little bit here. And I've got a Master Lock Pro Series here. So let's go ahead and grab our vise again because I am going to go with top of the keyway tension here. And I gotta move this around just a little bit here because we rotate this way for this guy. All right, and let's do, I think with this one, I don't think a 1.2 is going to be small enough. I think yeah, that's too big. So let's go with a 1 millimeter. All right, that fits perfectly. Gotta go with this side here. And then I want to go with a deeper pick and all that. So I'm going to go with the hook number 4 again, and this is in the 0.4 millimeters. And so let's go ahead and get this guy open. A nice click there. All right, let's reset here. A nice click. And there we go. We are open. So, again, I love multi-pick. The one thing that, with working with multi-pick, it is a German spring steel. So it is springier than like the high yield stainless steel that you would see from like Covert Instruments and all of that. But I kind of like that, that springiness actually lets me kind of get the like if I have a spool pen and I'm having a problem with like one dropping, it allows me to keep more tension on the pin and on the tensioner, and it just kind of pops it in place and all of that, I find. So I really like it. I have not yet had a multi-pick pick break on me or bend on me. Typically, I try to be really careful, and I've actually at points have really tried to like bend it and go like, "Argh!" And I haven't, bent or broken a pick with that yet. So with the point fours, you do want to be real careful with that though, because I mean they are, a more flexible pick. But again, I haven't had much of an issue. One thing that I love about the multi-picks is they do label all their picks here. So, this is a V04, which is their hook 4. Sometimes their coding doesn't make sense. So, like, this is here's their hook 1, and that's a PN06. So, I kind of wish that their coding would be a little bit more, straightforward. But, if you have a PN, that typically is the 6.6 millimeters. If you have a F, it's or PNF, it's a 0.5 millimeters, and then the PNB or the V is a 0.4 millimeters. So you can kind of tell the thickness from that, but also on the back, they've got some really nice etchings on it. So the 0.6 millimeters has this really kind of nice lockpick etching on it. And then the 0.4s, they actually have this nice 0.04 etched on the back of it. So it makes it really nice and easy to identify which pick, the thickness of your pick and all that, and which pick you've got. Because that's one thing that I do is I journal a lot with the locks that I pick. And so when I'm working on a new lock, I will go through and I will record what picks I used to open it. So that way, if I put it down and I go back, like say a few months later, I can look at my journal and say, oh yeah, I was using this pick rather than starting from square one and all that. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at this lock here. This is Abus Vitus 1000. And again, we're getting into the more paracentric keyways, and this is where we start running into some problems here because with the tensioners. Because you know, I like using, and I'm going to put it this way: the one thing, the one ten or the tensioners that I love from Covert Instruments are the Reaper tensioners, and especially the bottom of the keyway ones, and those have spoiled me, especially when it comes to paracentric keyways. And so when I'm looking at tensioners and all that, I'm kind of comparing them to that, and none of these fit as well as those did. So actually, with this lock here, I'm going to grab my Reaper tensioners here, and let's go ahead and use one of these guys for this lock. All right. So the thing with these though is they're not as long, and that's one thing that I wish that Covert Instruments kind of would change with this, make them just a little bit longer. Because as you can see, like if I keep my finger stretched out, it doesn't get to the fingertip, and I use my fingertip a lot for the sensation in terms of tension control. So, not having that length does get a little bit of a change to it. But let's go ahead and use this tensioner, and let's start with a hook number 1. And I'm going to get a hook number 2 out here and see what we got here. And I'm going to use my 0.6 millimeter first. I might change over to another one, to the thinner ones, but this actually has some tapered pins in it, some spool pins. I think there's a serrated pin, so it's got a lot of variety of pins in here. So this one gives me a little bit more of a challenge. Alright, so I want to get in here. Pin 1 is not binding, so I gotta get that to a point where that's binding. I think that's yeah, that's a pin. Alright. Nope, not yet. Alright, let's go with a pick 1. Or hook 1. Alright, got a nice click there. Alright, so pin 1 is now binding. Alright, that's set. I'm looking for the spool pins to get into a false set. Go back to the hook 2. And normally I'm not having this amount of trouble with this one. Alright, I might reset because I think I may have overset something. Alright, try this again. Alright, pin 1's binding. Actually, let's go to a hook 5. I don't think I have a 5 in my collection here. It has a bit of a more narrow head on it, so it might play a bit nicer with this keyway. Alright, reset again. I picked this guy open the other day. I may not, because again, I'm not used to not having my bowstring wrap on these. Also, we have a storm in the area, so my elbow and wrist are starting to act up a bit on me. So, some locks. I'm going to give this one more try. All right, so we're binding there. All right. Come on, where's my false set? Wait, I think I felt that move. Ah, there's a false set. All right, perfect. Now that I'm in my false set, I can go and hit that pin. I think I lost it. And see, this is where I kind of wish that this was a bit longer because that would definitely have a bit of a play on it. So, all right, I'm not going to get this guy open today. But anyways, I really love these picks. They are a great pick set. I'm going to make some of those changes with the tensioners just because I am going to keep a set of my covert instrument reapers in here as well because, again, I use these guys quite a bit and I really, really like them. I hope everybody enjoyed this video. I do recommend if you can get your hands on the multi-picks, especially like the Lock Noob Essential or the Sandman Advanced set. Those are two really, really great sets. I highly recommend. Thank you so much, DMAC, for doing your giveaways and all that. I was super excited to win that last one and get this set, so thank you so much. And I hope everybody has a beautiful day, and I will see you all later.